Welcome to Banned Books Conversations, where radical readers discuss prohibited prose. I'm your host, Tonya Todd, and we're here to talk about banned books, literary works that have been removed from a library shelf or school curriculum. Over the course of Banned Books Week, this series covers 7 different books, the reasons they were banned, and the value in reading them. And we have reached the final episode of this season. Today's book is Go Tell It on the Mountain by James Baldwin. We do have spoilers ahead, but before we get to that, let's meet today's radical readers. Fly, please tell us a bit about yourself and what you do.
Hi, my name is Fly. I reside in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I write movie reviews, I write screenplays and edit other people's work. I'm working on my first novel, and yeah, there's more to come in the future.
And what is it about the discourse surrounding banned books that compels you to get involved? I know you've answered that question in a previous episode, but it's worth revisiting for those who didn't catch that discussion or in case your answer has changed.
So, banned books is the beginning of the end of democracy, as far as I'm concerned. It's a very important topic. Censorship and having the right to choose for yourself is important for every human being. And when we talk about banned books, we talk about banning our rights, and we have to have the conversation so people understand how important it is to be aware of what's going on around this topic.
And welcome, Ty, your first time panelist here. I'm very, very pleased to have you here. I saw what you were doing with your own social media and thought, this looks like someone who understands the assignment. I would love to have his perspective here.
Well,
So
thank you
please,
for the invitation. I'm happy to be here.
please tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do.
Sure. My name is Allan Jackson. I'm a children's book author and motivational speaker. My purpose is to travel across the country talking to children about the importance and power of reading. I, as an independent author, have sold over 300,000 copies of my books, and one of my most recent book was actually just featured on Ellison's magazine, which I'm very, very proud to say. I've done 3 TED Talks and even received recently an honorary doctorate for my work in empowering young people about the importance of reading. You don't have to call me Dr. Jackson unless you want to. I'm just saying, but it is an accolade I'm very proud of.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Tell us why this conversation is important to you.
It's important to me because it's the conversation that I had as a child. Banned books or books that are now banned were the foundation of my childhood. From Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man to Richard Wright's Native Son to Alex Haley's biography of Malcolm X. These are the books that shaped my childhood. These are books that are now like officially, dismissed from access to our young people. And it is these books are my primary education, much more so than even my academic education. And so to remove them from shelves, I think is removing a part of what makes us us. And I want to defend that with every ounce of my being.
It's interesting that you mention Invisible Man because a discussion on that particular book was Fly's debut into the podcasting world.
Wow. Okay. All right. A little solidarity. That's what's
Yes.
up.
Well, in recent years, we've seen a sharp rise in book bans and challenges in the United States. According to PEN America, there have been nearly 16,000 book bans in public schools nationwide since 2021, a number not seen since the Red Scare McCarthy era of the 1950s. What does this rapid increase say about where we are headed as a society? We'll start with Ty.
Okay, I was going to defer to Fly because first of all, her name is much better than mine, and and you know, I'm a huge proponent of opportunity, and I think the reveal of positions of people and positions in power, removing these books from our society, is proof positive on how powerful these books are, and it's an opportunity for us to be able to not only have the curtain pulled back to reveal the wizard behind the curtain and everything that they're doing to suppress us, but also to say, why are these books being banned? What is so powerful about these books that they are keeping them away from us? So I also look at them as opportunity for us to do what we have always done, especially as a resilience people, and fight against our oppressor to do the things that we need to do to empower ourselves. And there's nothing greater to empower us than literature.
Fly, how do you see this trend seeping into the Canadian attitudes and practices?
Unfortunately, it's increasing. There's a saying that if America has a cold, if America sneezes, Canada gets a cold. And unfortunately, the rhetoric and it's increasing. One of our major school boards in Alberta has put a banned book list. And that hasn't happened in such a great number in decades. They've had books here and there, and we've always had somebody in the community push back. But the fact that a school board and a premier would sanction this information, it is frightening, concerning, but I am proud of the school board for announcing it and doubling down in a different way. So what happened in Alberta is it was really based on 4 books, but they used the broad stroke of the policy that the premier put in policy, and she put every book. So they had over 200 books. And then all great authors, Margaret Atwood was one of the bigger proponents who said, hey, if you let them ban our books now, they'll be burning my books later. So buy them that quickly. And that kind of was one of the cry to action. And so unfortunately, Canadians are now seeing that how much the influence of normalizing censorship is starting to creep over to our border, and we have to act now.
Yeah. Well,
and might I say, though, it's not an American issue. It's people who are in power, per se, that want to keep that. I don't want to demonize the United States of America, saying it's creeping only because of them. Unfortunately, it's a matter of people want to keep a status quo or retract certain powers and want to remove critical thinking. And I think that's why banned books, they are a prize because they inspire people to think and to question the status quo.
Excellent point. Something you did bring up earlier, Ty, is related to the next question. It's that critics of book bans argue that they disproportionately target marginalized voices, including books about race, gender identity, and sexuality. Why do you two think that some people in power work to suppress stories that challenge dominant narratives of identity and morality?
Well, because this country, and I will demonize the United States because I am here, so I have no problem criticizing it and holding a mirror up to it. But it's just part and parcel to what it's always been, and that is, a society that views people of color lesser than, and using the tools to empower them, or rather removing the tools to empower them, to take them away. And but again, I repeat, I always feel like when something like the guns are not being banned, pornography is not being banned, like all these other harmful aspects of our society are alive and well, but what somehow or another books have become the enemy. And I think in doing so, that it allows us to focus on that, and thank goodness for heroes like Margaret Atwood to showcase that power.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
To showcase that power.
Fly.
And just to say, I'm not to avoid being critical of the United States. I just want to be careful and clear that in Canada, a lot of the times we sit in our laurels and say that we aren't as bad as the US because we have a historical record. But that's how our systemic racism really works well, is that there is no record. They don't do gender-based statistics. They don't do race-based statistics. They're just now starting to slowly do that. So then they don't have a record of the atrocities and the removal and the erasure of our history in that regard. So in terms of the need to address this and raise and blow the whistle on this, it is paramount that if we want to remain a free Western society, we cannot allow censorship of this nature. to even creep into the community. So while it may not be the issue that you champion as a demographic of society, you have to understand that it'll be somebody else's rights tomorrow. So whether it's LGBTQ plus rights, racialized people, women, once we allow the government to arbitrarily just decide what we can do and think, we're all in trouble. The disproportionate measures against marginalized communities is, I think, how they get in, so that people can feel comfortable about, well, it's not me, and it speaks to the base of power. I don't think it's going to sweep across all community, everybody eventually, and it will only be through people of power, but they're going to use the other in the community first, and that's disheartening. And in an emergency situation, as far as I'm concerned.
So what's at stake for readers who are denied access to banned books?
What's at stake is ignorance. What's at stake is opportunity for growth. What's at stake is freedom. Freedom to choose, freedom to navigate your world in a way that you see fit, in a way that empowers you in the way that you choose to be empowered. Um, and as Fly stated, I think inevitably the demise of a democratic society. There's so much for us to lose because it starts here, but it won't finish here. And so there's a tremendous amount at stake. But like any other time that there are powers to suppress, there are also those who rise. And so while there are so many at stake, there are also now the opportunities for people from every walk of life to not only hold the people in powers accountable, but to assist everyone in rising up together to support one another. And I look forward to a blatant display of that opportunity to rise, because I believe it's coming. And although we as a society have suffered for this for hundreds of years, the 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 unique component to what is happening with people in power today is the ability for them to clearly reveal themselves and not to hide behind their sheets or their boardrooms or anything. The powers that be are out blatantly, openly saying the things, the quiet part out loud, and it allows us to see people for who they are and then to be able to act accordingly. And what it also does, it gives us the ability to see the revolutionaries who are fighting against them, and including us having this conversation today.
Yeah, they're not hiding anymore. They're not even embarrassed anymore.
No, proud.
They don't need
proud
to
in
be.
their ignorance. Yeah.
But yeah, what's at stake is freedom and choice for sure. And the ability to have great thought leaders come after, because that's how we learn, right? And for history to repeat itself, unfortunately. Because if we don't know the history and they start banning books and they stop banning the things that tell us the nuances and understand what the atrocities of old policies did to communities in the past, we'll repeat it because we won't have any record of it. So I think that's what's at stake. And like, we looked at what's going on in the news currently, and if censorship, because that's what banning books is a matter of censorship, right? So if censorship is allowed to happen in front of our eyes and we say nothing, then they've already won. So I'm thankful that we are having people revolt against it and ban and speak about it, because that's where they know that they haven't really gotten away with what they've been trying to get away with.
And what we saw this week, like in the past week, is that people can vote with their dollars.
Exactly.
And it will have an effect.
And in the Jimmy Kimmel case, if that's what you're speaking of, it can happen very quickly, as opposed to maybe the Walmarts and the Targets, which over time are starting to show, resolve. The Jimmy Kimmel thing happened very quickly. I mean, people, myself included, dismiss their Disney Pluses and their Hulus and their ABC affiliated services. And just like that, they took him back. And so yes, fighting with your dollars is 100% the most important component to expressing our voice and at the atrocities that are happening throughout our society.
Right, because if you hit them with their dollar for those who don't care and know what the agenda is, that will slow them down right away. And then for those for those minds that we can inspire through literature and understanding and compassion, we need the books in public arenas so that their hearts can be touched by the understanding of what these policies do. And that's why literature is scary, because once you change something's there's no amount of money that you can buy integrity.
Well said, Fly. I see why you're a veteran here now. I see you. Okay, I got you. I got you now.
Dr. Jackson.
So, Fly, you said something that reminded me of the last conversation that you and I shared, and that was about a banned movie, The Birth of a Nation. Another banned entity that we feel has the right to exist, whether we agree with what it says or not. But a lot of what they were doing is, it's coming back around again. Like you were saying, the history is repeating itself. And it's very frightening that something that seems like it should be so ancient, so far in the past, is now feeling so near.
Most definitely. I think so. The scary thing about the insidious propaganda of Birth of a Nation, because now I can never think of that phrase.
Right.
That it was rewriting history. If it in fact displayed what they were doing and was honest about the repercussions of their actions, it wouldn't have been so disturbing, because that's how they changed the geist of what was happening, and they softened the effects of the atrocities of lynching. We've had, like in the last week, we've had a young student lynched in 2025. I don't even understand how that's not a leading story throughout the world, really. But what I do know is if we keep specifically books, like hardcover real books, in the hands of people, you can't change the history. And when I think about like the digital versus the hardcover books, I'm glad in this day and age we have access to voting with our dollars, turning off things, but I also want us to make sure that we have hardcover books for people who don't have access to digital use, and that the knowledge that's in the book stay stagnant so that we can learn from exactly what's happening. That banning and altering and censoring of history is why they're trying to get rid of the books.
Right, because they can edit the digital versions to
exactly
soften it a little bit at a time. They can just change the language a little bit at a time, and what it used to say won't be what it says at all anymore.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
I was willing to debate that a little bit. I'm such a proponent of technology and utilizing readership by any means, which I know you do as well. But I almost advocate for digital versions because of the accessibility of it, not even putting together the ability to dilute it. I never even thought about that as a possibility. It's something that I'm assuming is already a reality from the way that you're posing it, Fly.
Well, I don't have evidence of which books have been edited at this point, but I do remember they had a different Bible in slavery times to help pacify and use religion to make people that were enslaved believe that they deserved to be enslaved.
Wow.
It's the same type, because the thing is with this censorship, nothing's changed. In every great war in the world, they start burning books, they stop banning people to teach other people to read. It's all the same type of thing, because once you inspire the heart of somebody and give them access to literature, they can't keep the wool over the eyes, they can't control them. As much as they have power to control a lot of things, they can't control human spirit once it's inspired. And that's why they banned the books from the greatest authors of our time, because They can touch and say the nuances of words to inspire change and compassion, and for humanity to see one another as the same, essentially.
I'm glad this is being recorded. I mean, I can't wait to replay this, Ty. You're killing it right now. I mean, Fly. I actually called you Ty instead of Fly. I mean, that shows so much for the Dr. Jackson part. But
He's so in awe of you that he can't even remember his own name.
that's right.
and
Amen.
and to speak to what you were asking, Ty, the the first time that I read Heart of Darkness, it was a digital copy, and the N word was altered, and so I'm reading it going, I don't understand why people got so upset about this book. Like, yes, there are lots of things. It's called Heart of Darkness, but when you when you change that word, it has a very different tone.
Yeah.
And I felt really silly afterwards, like when I found out, oh, what I was reading was altered. And I didn't know that they could just do that without saying, they should at least say at the beginning that because this word is offensive, we've decided to change it to this. And that's not what happened. And that was my introduction into, oh, they can change things without you knowing about it if you have a digital copy. And that is very scary because
and it's dangerous. Absolutely.
we need to preserve the original copies, even if they are offensive, especially if they are offensive. It's a piece of our history.
That's right.
Especially if they're offensive, so that we don't repeat the negative parts of our history again.
Right. So how can everyday readers take action to defend the right to read?
Well, I think one of the things that we need to do greater as a society and definitely as a people is that we have to instill the joy and powers of reading into our homes immediately, especially to our young people. I'm meeting both of you for the very first time, but I can guarantee you this. You were a reader as a child, and you were probably a reader as a child because you were introduced to reading as a child. And that love that you grew, that love that grew out of you to read carries over into the educated women that you are today. And so we need to make reading paramount in the home. It needs to be as valid as Sunday night dinners, as movie nights, as just normal family dinners and discussions. It needs to be just implemented every single day as a part of the normal family narrative of bonding and of entertaining and of educating. If we're going to foster a society of free thinking citizens, then reading has to be paramount, and paramount more so in the home than at school. And also with the primary educators of the children being the parents, leading that charge, and not just as a family, but also as an individual, showing children that how important reading is to do collectively as a group, but also individually as a person.
That is a movement that I can help you champion.
Amen.
I agree. Sign me up any way I can help and support that. So in addition to that, I think we also, as community members, we have to get involved in our schools, because most banned books start with parents associations and local libraries and school libraries. So for those children who don't have the primary parent in the home's opportunity to instill reading, a great librarian, if they don't have access to good books in that school, that library, they can't help that student. So that's one of the things. And yeah, make reading a necessary part of, like, we don't even have people getting a driver's license anymore. So I don't know what we're going to do to inspire them to get independent thoughts that way. But I just remember having young, dynamic, intelligent nieces, and they hadn't read a book. I go, what was the last book you read? And they couldn't tell me outside of school curriculum. And I made them read Coldest Winter Ever by Sister Souljah, just because I knew that it would get their attention and they would love reading. And once they get hooked with the reading, then the world's open to them. And I think reading is get young people reading, get your friends reading, ask them what's the last book you've read, as opposed to asking them how much money you make or where you're working. And then about what you've read. And that's another thing. For those of us who are readers, share how exciting it is to read a book. Like, I think people don't get it. When they hear us talk about a book and a character and the development, it's better than reality TV. Yeah.
So now let's talk about today's banned book. Published in 1953, Go Tell It on the Mountain is Baldwin's first major work and widely regarded as one of his best. This semi-autobiographical novel tells the story of John Grimes, an intelligent teenager in 1930s Harlem, and his relationship with his family and his church. The novel focuses on the role of the Pentecostal church in the lives of African Americans, both as a negative source of oppression and moral hypocrisy, and a positive source of inspiration and community. Baldwin's rendering of his protagonist's spiritual, sexual, and moral struggle of self-invention opened new possibilities in the American language and in the way Americans understood themselves. This book was widely praised at its publication and after, receiving favorable reviews in the New York Times, the Virginia Quarterly Review, Philon, and the Hudson Review. In 1998, the Modern Library ranked Go Tell It on the Mountain 39th in its list of 100 best English language novels of the 20th century. And Time magazine included it on its list of 100 best English language novels released from 1923 to 2005. Yet there are those who deem it dangerously rife with profanity and explicit sex, banning it for recurring themes of rape, masturbation, violence, and degrading treatment of women. Did any parts of this book offend you or make you uncomfortable? And if so, how did you handle those feelings?
Well, the most disturbing parts for me were honestly the relationship between father and son. Growing up without a father, I've always wondered what's more poignant, having no father or having a I don't want to say an abusive father, although that's exactly what he was, mentally and physically. I struggle to wonder what that is, but reading the relationship between the two of them, I almost value more not having a father in the home than having a father who is so skewed in his views and viewpoints, and in the way that he expresses them, that that was the thing that made me the most uncomfortable. The physical and mental abuse between him, between John, the protagonist, and Gabriel, the father. Really challenged my thoughts on fatherhood, especially with myself being a father of three, and thinking of the job that I'm doing raising my children, in the way that I consider best for them to grow and prosper, and how John's father, Gabriel, is simply doing his best to do the same thing the only way he knows how, despite how skewed again that it is.
Yeah, I agree. That dynamic was difficult for me, and it was coupled with there was a patriarchal hypocrisy from the point of view of his role as a pastor that permeated his, not only because his treatment of John, Gabriel's treatment of John was the negative treatment of John was rooted in the fact that he was born outside of wedlock, not from a different man, but from outside of wedlock. So that portion of it, really, it's still hard for me to reconcile that dynamic of why he was so abusive. Conversely, after that, in addition to then why he chose to marry Deborah and his treatment of his sister, those dynamics, Gabriel, I wasn't a fan. Let's say that. And as a parent, and as a believer, it's the hypocrisy of those variables that are tolerated and encouraged in the church and in the role of power was disturbing. And as a child who was born outside of wedlock, I know I know the shame it has on a mother that stops from allowing them to parent and protect their child when necessary. So I feel like John didn't get protection. Like his mom eventually did, spoiler alerts, stand up, but like because of that. So yeah, those are the themes. And that's why this book is so powerful and so necessary, because it disturbed all the things that disturb our community from growing and being healthy. Yeah.
Well, James Baldwin's work has often been targeted for candid portrayals of Black life and queer identity. In removing Go Tell It from the Mountain from classrooms or libraries, what opportunities are lost for students to grapple with themes like faith, shame, resilience, and generational trauma through literature?
Yeah, it's definitely the ability to see how others navigate their own struggles with sexuality, with identity, with their religious and family beliefs. I think books like these are so necessary to assist us in seeing the world so much bigger and brighter, and and in a way to assist us in figuring out how to navigate our own. I think of myself as a young man who was trying to find himself, and how characters like Bigger Thomas in Native Son really helped me, discover. It was that, in fact, that was the first book I ever read with a black protagonist, and his struggles to be able to find himself, no matter how lost he was within the story. John is very similar that way in figuring out his own identity, much broader, I might add. But removing that from shelves and giving children or people the ability to be able to see how others deal with their struggle, I think it's important. In fact, I think it's necessary in helping us create a more dynamic self.
I think even for the Gabriels of the world, if
Mm.
they had access to reading how their
Mm.
behaviors impact, because a lot of times people think they're coming from a space of structure, support, help, guidance, discipline. And if they just understood the damage and the emotional hurt they could cause those that they love or that they're in charge with their care, by seeing it from that point of view, it helps chip away at their ability to do things incorrectly. And you're not being held accountable, because sometimes it's harder to address your own stuff. But when you see it in a character, you can say, I don't want to be a Gabriel. And if we
Yeah,
don't have that context,
such a great
Yeah,
point.
it's one more tool in our arsenal to help people be better people.
Such a strong point.
yeah, I
I
love
love,
that perspective.
Yeah.
because the thing is, when I think about John's, when they were talking about for the LGBTQ plus community right now, they're under so much attack.
Mm.
And most human beings, even the ones that do evil things, love their children, majority of them. And I think if you just chip away at the heart, because everyone has one somewhere, deep there somewhere. Yeah.
So,
And sorry, go ahead.
no, I was going to ask you to continue, but it sounds like you were going to.
I just feel like the shame that John felt in the book is how they use shame is one of the biggest tools to use to make people feel unworthy of autonomy and agency, and you don't be your biggest self. And I'm thinking about all the great thought leaders in our life. If they were shamed out of their purpose, we
Mm.
wouldn't have the society we have now. So just to see shame being weaponized so much, and how I'm not trying to ruin the whole book for everyone who's listening, but there is a breakthrough, and thankfully, because that's the liberation that we need. And shame and liberation don't work hand in hand; they're the opposite of each other. And that's how we stop authoritarianism in the mindset of my way is the only way.
I just want to say that I appreciate that you came here saying how much you disliked Gabriel. Like you said, not a fan. Yet you're the one who found that branch for why this is so necessary for the Gabriels and how there's hope. And if they are given this opportunity, they can better themselves.
You know, coming off of the Jimmy Kimmel thing, one of the things that when he spoke to having the opportunity to come back on air, if we keep otherizing and making each other enemies, not seeing any type of humanity in the other person, we're never going to make any headway. These people love their families, their children, and we have to touch their hearts. And the only way we can touch their hearts is not to make them be numb, so they're not sheep just listening to the rhetoric, and that we see them, the humanity in them. Doesn't mean that we agree. And like, I don't know how I would have dealt with Gabriel if he was my husband. He may not have been alive one day.
He wouldn't have remained your husband, probably, one way or another.
Seeing that type of abuse towards John. But how do we make the change? Like, we put people in prison and then they come back out and we haven't changed their hearts. So the actions are still going to happen. If we just say you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, then all they're going to do is put their backs up and not see our humanity on the opposite side. So someone has to start.
So, how does banning this book silence not just one story, but a broader cultural and historical perspective, one that's essential to understanding American history and identity?
Yeah, it removes freedom of self, autonomy of self, the ability to feel comfortable in expressing our own individuality, sensuality, sexuality. Um, this kind of gives us a sort of a blueprint on how um, James Baldwin dealt with it in himself, and I think it's powerful in that way as a guide to be able to demonstrate the power of um, of just believing in who you are and staying steadfast to that without you know traditions or family or society telling you otherwise. So books are so powerful in in the way that they assist us in navigating our own lives, or how not to in the way of Gabriel. So removing these off the shelves is a huge disservice, it's particularly to marginalized communities. So it's all the more reason why the family and home dynamic has to really embrace and bring works like Baldwin into the home and make them the focal points, because schools are not, universities are not, and soon apparently many libraries are not. So if we don't go out of our ways to make works like these prominent within our homes and in our society and our culture, then we lose a lot of the strength that took us to where we are right now.
Mm-hmm. It's like, well said, Dr. Jackson. It's like, but I think it's like one story is one intersection, and a domino effect. So once you silence one story, you silence all stories. Censorship doesn't start with just one. Once you give the power of censorship in one area, you've given the power for every area. So it affects every single one of us. Today it's Baldwin. Tomorrow it's a Reader's Digest article on how to save your health. It's your ability to research information to make an informed decision of what's good for you, yourself as an individual. It's the ability to not be able to see yourself, your child, your son, your friend, your neighbor, your cousin as a human being that deserves to have joy and feel safe. Yeah, we can't, one story is one too many. And then we don't have the balance. And nature is about balance. You need to have the story that disturbed your spirit to make you think and think otherwise, and the things that you don't like to challenge who you are, because we're supposed to be always growing, not receding and taking things away. We're supposed to be adding good to the world. Even the things that disturb us or make us feel uncomfortable, we're supposed to be able to examine it with a context of truth and understanding. And the truth of the matter is some books that were like, think about this, 1953, this book was released, and it was such a groundbreaking book. And now, thankfully, because of Baldwin, we have so many other books that speak to this topic. So imagine if we had erased Baldwin before the other authors had an opportunity to understand that we have the right to our feelings and to express them this way. It'd be
as well as the Baldwins for today, the Baldwins today who are paving a more progressive narrative forward for future generations to follow and see. So you couldn't be more correct in about this work and how it's impacted us, but how the Baldwins of today are feeling. How much does their voice matter now? How maybe they're feeling uncomfortable to be able to express their narratives for future generations, to look back on as a pillar of strength for them to feel empowered for a better life. So yeah, it impacts not just our present, but so much of our future as well.
And we have to fight, like the readers with the readers have to fight, because I think there was a Canadian author, he was banned for sexual content and liberation. And I think he came from Syria. I can't remember his name, and he stopped writing. And he eventually won, but he just said it wasn't worth his ability to be able to travel through the world and raise his family.
Wow. Yeah.
What a loss. And I'm sorry that I can't remember the name of the author right now. If I could encourage him, I would say that we need your stories, we need the compassion, and we need to keep this conversation going. And also, not only with the banning of books, once a book has been banned, I found there's two things that happened. Either like the ABC story effect that happened with Jimmy Kimmel and Disney and so forth, or the books are harder to find. I went to a lot of our chain. We have one major bookstore in the country, which is a part of how they control the narrative and language. And for me to get this book, it was harder to get it on the shelf. I had to order it online to have it shipped in. And then I only could get this edition. I couldn't get, so reading this introduction has a new contemporary view on the importance of why this book is so amazing. And it's great. Roxane Gay does an amazing job. However, I would have loved to be able to compare the introduction that was done 40 years ago and 30 years ago to see where the cultural mindset has shifted and why and when within context of when it's been published. Those type of things, those nuances, they remove it for a reason. And it's a key to how we're going to combat this authoritarianism that's trying to permeate the world.
How do you think that Baldwin's in the intersections of his identity helps strengthen his ability to empower the readers and the writers of today?
Oh, there's no greater way to do so than to know so. So, I mean, he lived a very colorful, eclectic, profound life, and you can feel it within the pages of this book, within the characters that are represented, and it's one of the reasons he's just one of the more integral figures of our generation, and not even just the Black generation, just our generation as a whole. So, if you follow Baldwin and you read his work, you feel the intersection of both. You feel his pain, you feel his joys, you feel his frustrations within his characters. They're symbiotic that way in a very, very beautiful and profound and strong way. So it's I'm going to admit something I shouldn't and didn't have to. This is the first time I'm reading Baldwin. And but I'm a huge follower and advocate of his work and his mission, and have seen so much of what he's gone through and traveling the world to spread the gospel of Black empowerment and freedom and liberation. And I'm glad in a way because seeing the dynamics of James Baldwin the person and then reading his first work, I can feel the energy between the two. Like even if I didn't know who wrote this book, if you just handed it to me and asked me who do you think the author was, I would say it was James Baldwin. Like I could feel it, and so I'm actually proud to say that this is my first and definitely the first of many of his works that I will process, that I will read. Because being a fan of Baldwin himself, I can now say that I'm also a fan of his work, and I'm looking forward to learning more.
Well, I'm so glad that I helped you hit that step because I can't wait to see where you take it.
Yeah,
I want to hear more about your thoughts on Baldwin
Beale
after you
Street
read
is up
more.
next, so yeah,
Then
and
fire next time after
I
that.
say that again.
And then I would suggest fire next time after Beale Street.
Okay, should I do that first before Beale Street,
No,
or
no,
what do you?
do it. Do
Okay,
it. The thing is, and the genius of Baldwin is his intersectionality and the fact that you can put a mirror to the ugly parts of something that you cherish and you hold and you value, like the church, and have faith,
mm,
and also still believe in the faith of it. And I think that's the dichotomy of how he balances that so well, because it's not because he made sure he did a right word count, it's because of the respect of both. It's the
yeah,
compassion of being able to see it. And that's all his books are really asking, is to say, look at how we're harming each other, let's fix that. And still there's still goodness in the genesis of what it started to be. Because the faith and what his and Gabriel's story came from a wayward, irresponsible man who found faith to help him be a respectable member of community. But then he let the power of that position, without being questioned, take over. And that's where banning books starts. If you start banning books and censoring, then you stop allowing people to ask questions, because that's what books allow you to do, is
mm,
have thinking. And that's, I think, why he inspires not only critical thinking but critical feeling. You
Mm.
feel how I felt the shame of John, and I was liberated by him not feeling shame afterwards, and there was no reason for him to feel shame, and you're rooting for him. So, and the idea that Baldwin and so many marginalized authors are on the banned book list, more than 50% representation, uh, is a cry, is a response to understanding that less people think the way people who created Birth of a Nation want to think in this world. And that's why they're trying to ban these books.
Well, Baldwin challenged readers to confront injustice. And I, for one, feel like we have a responsibility to carry that message forward. So, how do we ensure that his voice remains part of the national conversation?
well, I think I mentioned earlier how literature has to be a foundational component to family. Like it just it needs to be as traditional as the holidays we celebrate, but on a daily basis, and following heroes like James Baldwin are so important, especially in this age where history is being suppressed and altered and changed. Um, but to be able to discover Baldwin like I did, not necessarily through books, but through his advocacy, through his missions, through his global touring to promote the importance of equality, which is how I discovered him. And I think it's important to be able to showcase those narratives, especially since we have technology that allows us to see his interviews and to hear his voices via podcast or whatever have you, and then align that again with his works. So and whether it's Baldwin or Haley or Ellison or Wright or Gay or whomever, um, to be able to make sure that these proud, strong voices are paramount within the home.
Yeah, most definitely. I think we celebrate like it was his 101st birthday, August 2nd, and they're celebrating Baldwin all year round. So we keep his name in the Geist. We talk about him. We say his work. We quote his lines, and all other great thought leaders. We don't let them. You keep people alive by saying their name and keeping their names a part of your regular conversation, and that's how we push the need forward. Like I think when they put Margaret Atwood's book on the list to ban in Alberta, people were like, not our national treasure. And that was when it became national news, and it's put a stop. Like they've put a halt. They've rewritten the legislature to add pornographic sexuality so that they won't be able to ban any books arbitrarily with this broad stroke. And it hasn't even come into effect. The school year started with no banning of any books. And they're going to rewrite the legislation on October 1st because we kept the name of certain great thought leaders paramount, and people understood the power and the impact. And we knew that once you're playing with people like Baldwin, Toni Morris, Maya Angelou, Margaret Atwood, Gay, any of us,
Alice Walker.
Alice Walker. Once they realize, once you start touching those names, you know there's another agenda going on, and it's time to ring the alarm.
Ring the alarm. Yes.
Love it.
Yeah.
And once again, it's showing the power of the people to make a difference, to make their voices heard, and to make change happen. That they can't win unless we lie down and allow it.
Right. And books are a place to rest. I think after what happened in 2020, a lot of advocates, everyone's like, oh, it was so great to see young people moving and everything else. There's a cost to revolution, and it's exhaustion. And people get tired. And that's what they bombard us with all these different things. So we're tired and we become numb and desensitized. And books are a soft place to rest, get inspired, and it sits in your subconscious mind to act differently and your everyday living. So when you're at the office cooler and someone says something that's a little bit derogatory, an author has already mentioned and given you the whole story of how you can change that whole narrative.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that type of thing that books can do that are not controlled by the FCC and allow your imagination to grow. And again, once you get your imagination moving, you're a critical thinker. And they can't. We won't lie down there.
So what are the reasons people should read Go Tell It on the Mountain?
I think it's it feels as poignant today as it did in 53. And so I think it holds a mirror up to us and ages really well. And so to learn how to better to deal with self today, I think this book is a really great mirror to help us to move forward and expressing our own individuality, to better dissect family dynamic, our own religious beliefs, our own sexual beliefs. It's just a powerful, important book. Again, also aligned with a really important, powerful leader who created this book, and I now almost have it as a badge of courage that I'm reading his work now after learning more about him first. So I think it's a really important that this book become part of your library and a frequent read.
You understand why his name resonates with great thought leaders when you read this book. This is not an accident. He wasn't a one-time hit wonder. I think Go Tell Him On is a powerful coming of age story of a young boy, and how would I have any relationship to a young boy who I do because he's shown me his heart. And so it's a phenomenal read, and it inspires you to just read through everything else. I think the first book I read of Baldwin was Fire Next Time, and then I had to just read everything because I couldn't be satiated enough, and then I understood. And then you think about all the other great leaders in the world, they were inspired by him. They've read him. And if you want to be a great, if you want to impact the world and be a great individual, you have to feed yourself with greatness. And this is an author that's great.
Oh, that is a wonderful way to end it. Feed yourself with greatness. So, do either of you have any final thoughts that you want to share with the audience? This is the last episode of this season. Any final thoughts on how to fight censorship, how to preserve the right to read, or how to keep going in today's climate with all of the attacks that we are under at this time?
I can advocate, and I've said it numerous times here. We have to promote the importance of reading to our young people. You have to, anyone 5 years or younger, sit them on your knee tonight and read a story to them. And I think it's also important that you allow the child to choose their books, to not force feed them what you think that they want to read. And they will, if they embrace the importance of reading through the joy of their own choosing, they will grow to expand their palette into other directions. So Baldwin may not be the ideal choice for someone that's under 10. They may want to read, Black Panther first, and that's great. But I can assure you that that pathway will surely but lead them into a direction of promise through works like Baldwin.
Definitely, I echo everything that Dr. Jackson said today in regards to encouraging reading in the home. Make reading fly again. Like, make it a thing. Like, you have to just, I need people to have books again. Hold a book. Ask the person what last book you read. Make reading a thing so that people understand that they want access to everything. We're in a world we want to consume everything. Let's consume some books. And then when you start hearing that a book's being taken away from you, buy that book first.
Buy that book, yeah. Amen.
Buy the books.
Yes.
Every banned book they put on the list, buy it. Use it as your Christmas list or your holiday list or your gift giving list or your birthday list, or just because. Yeah. Let's make reading fly again. Yeah. That's it.
Thank you both. Sorry, I'm getting choked up because make reading fly again.
I love it.
I love it. Yes.
That is a t-shirt.
Yes.
You
yes.
Hurry
More,
up and trademark that, or I'm doing it.
More t-shirt moments from Fly.
We're gonna definitely have t-shirts the next time we meet. It's been an honor and a pleasure to have a conversation with both of you this afternoon. I always like to be in this presence of people who think and read, because I grow as an individual and I learn a new thing. So thank you both for having me a part of this conversation.
And I thank you for the invitation. It is an honor and a privilege speaking with you both today. I learned a tremendous amount.
Same. And it's my show, I want to thank you both for wrapping up this year's series with such power and such empathy and such compassion. Before we wrap up, Ty, please tell us how people can find you and support your work.
Thank you. You could follow me on Instagram at pretty much every social media platform, as well as my website, which is Ty Allan Jackson, TYALLAN Jackson.com. Yeah, feel free to buy my books, share my work, and keep reading.
Fly?
You can find me on Instagram at FlyInHD. And there will be a website coming soon. I'm still working on it, and to have some more published works coming through. And I'm going to definitely be buying some books, Mr. Dr. Jackson. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, I need that one more time. Fly what?
FlyInHD. FLYINHD.
Got it. All right.
Making connections right now. Yeah.
Yes, keep reading, everyone, please.
And check out her brilliance on Banned Movies, where we talk with Spider Dan and Tony Holt Jr. about Birth of a Nation. Her insights are brilliant, as usual. I do want to say I have to say thank you to the people who made this show what it is this year. This is the final episode of this year's Banned Books Conversations, but it would not be possible without the help of others. So many thanks to JP Butler, Charles Larson, Femon's Ria Carrogan, and Mike Burton of Genuine Chit Chat for their assistance and support behind the scenes. Thank you to the ladies of Femon, Ria, Ada, Jess, and Allison who let me hijack the schedule all week. Thank you, Tony Farina and Dave Horrocks, for supporting the right to read and sharing this content on the Comics in Motion feed. Thank you to Marshall.edu for being such a great resource by listing banned books and their challenge history. I want to thank everyone who recommended books for the series. Please keep those suggestions coming. We still have work to do. Thank you to all of our amazing guests this year. You are how we keep this conversation moving forward. And of course, to the audience who keeps turning in, thank you for listening. And more importantly, thank you for reading.